Howdy, folks. From my new location, I'm making a movie now, and it's all about science and a new science, actually. The thing I like to discuss is about a new way of thinking in science. Now, today, science is making assumptions, and based on those assumptions, create a theory. But the thing is, the danger of that is that if these assumptions are unproven, that the whole theory, the whole idea, the whole new idea is failing. So one of the issues is that assumptions, when made, it's not bad to make some assumptions, but these assumptions must and need to be tested before, preferably before the theory is set up, because an assumption can be a wrong assumption. And assumptions are a vital part of science, scientific ideas, of scientific new theories. But an assumption must always be tested whether that assumption is true, yes or no. Because if an assumption is not true, then the whole theory, the whole new idea fails, and then your whole then it's a waste of time of inventing a new theory. So when you do assumptions, which is in itself okay, you need those assumptions to be tested and tested for validity. Are those assumptions valid? Because an assumption is you assume that something is true. So you put some kind of belief into a certain kind of assumption. Well, if that assumption is wrong, then you put a wrong belief in that assumption. So actually, what you're creating in science, and that's the danger of it, is that you are creating by assuming something is true, which might not be true, is that you are creating a belief system instead of a science system. And if you do make an assumption that is wrong, then eventually you are creating nothing more than a religion, because you put your belief in wrong assumptions. And you may believe it that it's true, but that doesn't mean it's true. It needs to be tested to reality. And if you cannot test it to reality, then your whole theory is based on nothing. And it falls like it just simply evaporates. And today, science has a lot of theories that based on assumptions that are never deeply tested on their validity. Ice core dating, radioactive dating, the constants of radioactive decay, the constants of light speed, etc., etc., the constants of all the natural constants, etc. So if you assume that these things are valid, that the decay rate is valid, that for example the growth of tree rings is annual, the growth of annual rings in ice cores. If these assumptions are now tested on their validity, then your whole theory is corrupt. And that's what we need to eradicate from correct science. Science is nothing against it as long as it's done correctly. And to make it correctly, you need to test every detail of it, including the assumptions. This is what I want to share, and because there's nothing wrong with science in itself, as long as the basics are valid, and then you get a strong and valid science. And if you forget to make correct assumptions or forget to test your assumptions, then your whole theory might be crooked and corrupt and invalid in the end. And you by testing your assumptions, you prevent that you become a laughing stock in the end. And especially as creationist scientists, uh, um, we have found that some assumptions that in the past have been made are simply wrong. I've showed you several videos in where assumptions of earth layer deposits or ice layer deposits that they are annual or for earth layers take place in millions of years. These assumptions are not correct scientifically. I showed you my previous one of my previous movies is about artificial dunes that have been deposited and where you see a minute earth layering, including with human artifacts. So the assumption that earth layers are deposited in millions of years is not valid. The same with ice core dating. I've showed you in several of my movies that ice deposits do not alter in color or in density annually. No, that can happen multiple times in one day even. So that assumption that an ice core layer is 1 year, represents 1 year, that assumption is a wrong assumption. And so the whole theory is not valid. And that's the dangerous of taking wrong assumptions. So we need a new way of thinking in science, that the assumptions that you make, that they must be tested in order to perform correct science. Okay, this is the message for so far. Hasta la vista. See you next time. Bye bye.